We want to welcome everybody to the Maryland Lead Poisoning Prevention Commission. This is the February 1st, 2024 edition. The historical event of the day is my dog turns 12 today, so happy birthday to Dexter. Need to say that publicly so I can go home properly. My best friend and an all-around good guy. Wendy, if you could just do the roll call for us to make sure that we have our commissioners and we have quorum for the record, please.
Okay, so I'm gonna just run through the names of who I see on there, and if you're a commissioner and I didn't call your name, please speak up. So Adam Skolnick, Jacob Benzikin, Mangela Paul Rogers, Paula Montgomery, Ruth Ann Norton, Susan Kleinhammer, Thea Williams. Is there any other commissioner that is on? Oh, Benita Cooper, I see that you are on now.
Hi, Wendy.
Oh, Cliff, hello, you're on. Anybody else that I missed?
That's the real chair right there, Dr. Mitchell. And Paul Rogers.
Yeah.
And Paul had sent us something I know he wanted to bring up for the commission, so I want to make sure we do that. Just a couple of quick things. Wendy, if you don't mind, we'll do the minutes, then we'll get to our agenda, please. And welcome, Barbara.
Okay, I didn't know if Wendy saw me. And I was just
Barbara, hi.
Hi, I was just wondering if at the end, Madam Chair, people that are involved with my recurring inpatient, if we could just stay on the call for a couple minutes at the end to discuss. Just need to get an update on housing because, as you know, things have deteriorated even more. So if we could do that at the end, I'd appreciate it.
Is there something that we should raise in the course of the commission to know for support or anything there?
Just the lack of lead-free housing, but the risk of using status of getting houses worked on. So yeah. I don't know. We've had other meetings about it.
Yeah.
So I want to know if there was an update.
Great.
Cliff has his hand raised.
Yeah. Okay. Cliff, let me do this. Let me please get our minutes adopted. We can open up for conversation accordingly. Okay. And we will do that. Okay. So minutes of the last meeting. We had a few members absent, but we did have quorum. We had a good guest list there. But did anyone have any amendation to the minutes, please? Hearing none, can I get a motion for adoption of the minutes, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes, Wendy, are for the record, and we will move forward with our agenda. And we wanted to, before we get started, a couple of things I do want to bring back up, and I think Barbara raised this. Our real need to be able to identify lead-free housing for children who have been poisoned and needing relocation, and for children to prevent poisoning. One of the things that I am going to try to meet with Delegate Boyce on and talk to the legislature about is what we can do around the application fees issue also, because we are soaking folks who are low income with huge application fees who are then not getting units. These are not refundable, and it's running into the hundreds of dollars. We are also looking at how we can create a fund, but I think we need a universal application for rental in Maryland that will help us. And so Adam and Jacob, I know you're on the call here. From a property owner perspective, we've got to really tackle this issue. We have a lot of families who need housing who just are running out of money almost through all of the different application processes and not getting placement. So I'd like to convene an actual work group on this. And I'd like to ask Barbara to join that. And I'm going to ask members of my team who work on this, Angela Perry Hall and Wes Stewart, to do this, because I think it's a great urgency. And I'd like to be able to report back at the next meeting on that. But Barbara and Cliff, you might want to, I know we're raising this in the opening comments piece, but I think it's important. So Cliff, you had your hand up.
So, and I just want to, first of all, I want to acknowledge Barbara Moore's contribution to this discussion and the fact that she continues to be a tireless advocate for people with lead poisoning on the clinical side. I also, Barbara, mechanically want to think about whether we want to have another meeting occasion for that meeting after this, because I just want to make sure that we respect the confidentiality of people who are on. So that's just a quick note about this. But I think we've had several recent cases that the Department of Health, Department of Environment, Baltimore City, but other jurisdictions as well across the state, where we've had kids with extremely high lead levels, particularly in this day and age. And I completely agree with the chair on this one that we've had significant obstacles moving children into lead-free housing. Personally, and I'm not speaking for the department here, but I do think we need to look for a mechanism which would basically allow an application fee to be waived for children with lead poisoning where there's documentation on the part of the health department or a primary care provider. And I think we ought to think about a mechanism to allow that, because it is I agree with you, it's an obstacle, but I'm trying to think about how to make that an operational thing. But I will say that I agree with Barbara and with you, Ruth Ann. There's that in and of itself, plus the relatively limited supply of lead-free as opposed to lead-safe housing. And Paul, this is where I think one of the things that I have seen in several of these cases that I think is also worthy of discussion is a discussion with the primary care community as well as the public health community. We have seen some cases where, frankly, an insistence or preference for moving into lead-free housing has left children in a situation where they had continued exposure, even if they could move into lead-safe housing. Paula, you've got an echo.
Sorry,
Yeah, I don't know what happened
got
there,
it.
Paula.
I muted
I
her.
got it. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's okay, no worries.
At any rate, I think for consideration is some outreach to the primary care community and to the public health community and the housing community about, in certain cases, making sure that we are moving children from bad situations to better situations, even if they're not perfect situations. And that, I think, is one of the issues to think about, particularly in Baltimore City, but not exclusively.
We have Paula's hand up, but Barbara, I didn't know if, before we call on Paula, if you wanted to respond to Cliff. I'm going to invite Angela Hall from my team and West if they have anything to add to this conversation, and also put Theo on alert that we have to have DHCD in this conversation. DHCD has a lot of different ways and that they could be helpful, I think. So I'm asking Theo to join this work group. But Barbara, before we get to Paula.
Right. I
And
agree.
then we also have Adam. Adam, I did not mean to miss you there. Sorry.
I agree that it is across the state, because we have a few other cases, but we have two that are, one especially that's very significant, and then a couple others that, for this day and age, I agree. Lead levels in the 30s is still high. Lead levels in the 60s is a lot more serious that we have to focus on. And then we have the kids that, because of diligent cleaning and repainting by families, lead levels we'll see coming down, but they're on Band-Aids. And we need to find other answers. And right now, I think one of our biggest challenges are owner-occupied homes.
One of the biggest challenges is what?
Owner-occupied.
Yeah. And that
And-
the need for a relocation fund statewide is also something that we need to get a hold of. I do want to say, Paula, as I go to you and then Adam, I serve on the EPA Children's Health Protection Advisory Council. We've been working on a charge letter on lead, but in talking with people from Michigan, from Cleveland, and other parts of the country that are running lead programs, they are actually experiencing the same spike they're seeing. So I don't know if it's a result of post-COVID or not, but it's something I know we should be conferring on solutions that they're looking at. Paula, then Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to clarify with Barbara as to whether or not it was a rental property or an owner-occupied property, because there are, laws that govern, the responsibility of a property owner in the relocation of a child with an elevated blood lead level to a lead safe property, which, we can determine, we can make recommendations about whether it's lead safe or lead free. But, the owner occupied situation is a tough one. And I don't really have any recommendations about how to address that, other than I think it might be indicative of the current housing market right now, and there's just not a lot availability out there. And so people are doing a lot of renting right now. I bet you if we were to look at the numbers, renting has increased dramatically because the housing market is very sort of slow right now.
It's certainly a tough market in terms of cost for sure.
Yeah.
Adam, you took your hand down. Did you mean to?
Just because you had already recognized me, so I was just getting it off the screen. Sorry. I mean, basically, I mean, Barbara hit the nail on the head in terms of the owner-occupied piece, which I want to be part of trying to figure out solutions, but obviously my organization can't help with that. On the rental side, I mean, obviously Paul's talking about the relocation funds, but I mean, our organization is 100% ready to help anybody find housing and not have to pay repeated application fees. So if we can help in any way, jump in. I mean, look, and Ruth Ann, I'm going to say this. I mean, we would always prefer not to be fighting this out in Annapolis and let's just have a dialogue.
We agree. Yeah, right. We agree, but I just don't, and I would love DHCD and all of the jurisdictions. If we could come, one of the solutions that I've been thinking about, let me just say, I'll credit just my own internal crazy head. But can we not come up with a universal application that owners would sign on to accept, and that there would be one application fee, not 5, and then applications could be pre-vetted, and then owners could rely on that pre-vetting process.
Yeah. The answer to your question is today, no. In the future, maybe. And the reason I say no is there's been a massive increase in the amount of fraud going on in the rental and housing industry right now. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars a year are being lost because of fraud. And I can happily send Wendy a couple of articles just to point it out. So our members in particular are hyper freaked out about that right now. I mean, if you were talking 5 or 6 years ago, this wouldn't be the dialogue that it is today. And I have no idea why. I think COVID probably had something to do with it, but I have no, that's supposition. So, I mean, everybody is so sensitive to the fraud that's going on out there that they always want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And everybody is always understandably concerned about fair housing issues and treating everybody exactly the same, and fair credit reporting things that I don't see that being a likely solution. What I do think is a possible solution is just some educational stuff. I mean, we have members where if the prospective applicant is forthright and says, these having nothing to do with the lead status of their child, is forthright about their credit history or forthright about their rental history, a lot of times my members will suggest to them that based on what they're telling them, they don't want them to apply and waste their money because their credit or their rental history or whatever it is so bad that I mean, our members, just so you know, I mean, and again, just for everybody's recollection, I mean, I represent the folks that own and manage professionally managed apartment communities mostly, right? They don't make money on application fees, right? It's just a straight pass through, right? Whatever they get charged is what they charge. And I mean, and so they don't want, it costs them money to have somebody run an application that gets rejected. They don't want that at all. So, I mean, I think a piece of this is us being part of helping the folks that Barbara and Cliff are supporting on educating them on the best way to go about these things. And, and I'm sure I can get a bunch of volunteers that would happily hold people's hands, because we don't, our members don't want them to waste their money on application fees either, right? It's just bad for society in general. There's nothing good about that.
Well, Adam, and I know we all want to avoid this, right? But it also, when you have a family that puts in 5 application fees, they get turned down in all 5, right? We want to make sure there's no discriminatory practices happening here either. And so there's been concern on this. And so I think it's better if we all kind of talk, but I will say in the work group, I also am going to ask Angela to help me, Angela Perry Hall, who's so excellent on our staff, but to ask if we can bring some parents potentially who've experienced this to our work group so we can make sure we're hearing from these instances. Barbara, I would encourage that too. So I have, before I get to Barbara, Susan Kleinhammer, you had your hand up. Did you want to be heard? You were up before.
Yes, thank you, Ruth Ann. I just wondered if, in fact, the owner-occupied children who have elevated blood lead levels, once again, it comes back to maybe remodeling. I mean, I do think that most upper middle class, no, you're shaking your head, Cliff?
No.
Okay. I mean, my concern, again, just to make sure it goes on record, is we've always talked about trying to do something about making sure contractors doing remodeling are, lead trained, and yet that has not come to fruition.
Yeah, we need to double down on that. And I know we lost connection on that. Wendy, I would like to invite the Maryland Home Improvement Commission to a meeting where we can talk about at least educational programs and that they may have along with MDE, right? And I'm not sure, there's a real opportunity when we're pulling permits, and if Catherine Taylor is on or Julie from the city, but when we're pulling permits, when people are getting licensure for the contractors, there's really good opportunities for education there. We need to figure that out. Maybe we can work with the department and renew those efforts. And Susan, if you would help us to do that, along maybe with Chris White from ARC and others, that would be great. I had, Barbara, you did have your hand up. Cliff had your hand up. Do you guys still have more to add on this?
No, the only thing is, I think it would be helpful to have somebody, in addition to Barbara, Paul, participate in this, because a lot of this, I think, will be tied into education to the healthcare providers, who are the primary place where a lot of these questions get asked, and the public health community as well.
Well, I mean, we'd be happy to reach out, to Maryland Physician Care and WellPoint and a number of others I know that have interest in health-based housing, and I think they'll, see what we can do. But we also need priority partners in here. They're a big player in the constituency that may be living in older housing just where their footprint is. But across, and I will say, across the state, right? We've got to pay attention to Western Maryland more and more as well. I'll call on Susan, then I want to kind of get the two streams of work groups and then ask people on those work groups to try to get a leader on it that isn't me, given my terrible schedule of right now. But Susan?
Yeah, thanks, Ruth Ann, again. The one thing that has come to my attention too is working with some owner occupants is that there is no availability of the one type of kit that is normally used by contractors under RRP, that lead check, 3M lead check. And a lot of owners have been resorting to non-approved lead check spot test kits. And they're not approved. And you know what? They don't work.
Is that something that MDE has any jurisdiction? Paula, your hand is up. Do you have any jurisdiction to enforce that?
Well, the problem is, and I don't know the details of this, but I believe that 3M is no longer making those lead check swabs because they contain a chemical that is no longer allowed, and the name escapes me right now. So I thought that EPA was working on another, and I think they weren't going to stop making them. I thought it was like 2024 or 2025. I can look into that. I'd be happy to look into that.
In the chat, it said, well, Dawn, can we just call on you? Then you add in what we just said.
Sure. 3M quit making the lead check packets in October of 2023. The only approved product now by the EPA is a company called D-Lead. And they are, as you can imagine, in short supply. It took us about 2 months to get some ordered for training purposes. So they are in real short supply, and they are the only ones that are approved at this time.
Well, I think that's worth a public service announcement somewhere for contractors that maybe, Paula, maybe we can work on making sure that people know that the only approved swab is that, and we can try to get that out to the contractor community in every way that we possibly can.
I agree.
Okay. Well, let's work on that.
I
And
could send you the link on where they can be purchased, Paula,
Okay.
if you would like me to do so.
Even though I just want to be clear that the department doesn't recognize that as any, that would be,
Responsibility.
right, yes. I mean,
I'm
it's
sorry,
e-
Paula, can you be clear about what you're saying?
I mean, the lead check swab is not recognized by the department as any official
Yeah,
testing
then we probably
mechanism.
don't want, right, then we need to be clear about that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, but we would have no problem saying that, but it would just be, for informational knowledge from owner occupieds and for the RRP.
Yeah, well, we definitely need, we've got some
Seems
issues.
really great that, this happened like that with having one alternative, which is terrible. That's terrible, but whatever. It is what it is.
Okay, so a couple of things, Wendy, if you'll help me here. I'm asking a number of people that I've to get do a work group meeting between now and the next commission on this issue of application fees and barriers being faced just on the rental side. I'm asking if there's objection, please, but I'm asking Theo from DHCD, Adam, Jacob, if he can do it, Barbara Moore, Cliff, if you have time. And then I'm asking for Angela Perry Hall and Wes Stewart from my team to me, outline these barriers and recommendations and suggestions, even if at a high level, so that we can become actionable in support as a commission. So I would appreciate if there's any objection to that, serving on that, let Wendy know.
So I'll go ahead and send out a survey for dates, possible dates and all that, and that'll be forthcoming. So
That'd be great. Secondarily, we do need to get back on the MHIC contractor education piece. Susan, I know it was you and me and Adam pretty much before, but anybody who would like to join that would be really helpful. And Susan, if you wouldn't mind taking the lead of getting an outline and conversation around that, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. And then Paula, on this just informational, whether the department thinks that they want to be in on that or not, I just asked Chevelle Bash on our team to work with me and you about making sure at least homeowners know what is the EPA approved lead swab. And Dawn, Joy, if you will join us on that, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, Dawn, if you could send me that information in an email, I agree with you. I think it's a good, Ruth Ann, that we should at least get the message out there. Because we're one of the, they stopped making it because of other laws and regulations.
Yep. And Chris White, I see you're on the phone, and we'd love to have you on the contractor side for sure. And if any place else you want, I know you're always so good to attend, and I want to tap your brain there. And Chevelle, can you just acknowledge that you heard me?
Yes, ma'am. I heard you.
All right, great. Okay, so I'll ask you to take the wheel on that with Paula, and we will move. Now, Wendy, we have a regular agenda. Let's see what we got. And thank you, everybody. Look, I want to thank everybody for caring about making sure we get this right and that we get back to getting these levels down. And we got to focus here, because I think lead in housing certainly, and you'll hear in a few minutes about the greenhouse gas stuff. The people take it for granted, and this is what happens when things get taken for granted of success or progress or the like. One other item, I don't think we have either Delegate Attar or Senator Carter. I have spoken with both Delegate Rosenberg on the House side and with Senator Ferguson. I have also spoken with Delegate Boyce in the House, and I think she may be inclined to want to take that position if it becomes available. We have yet to identify a senator, but I understand that Mary Washington may have raised her hand on that. Wendy, I don't know if it's Tyler, but if we can work on those representatives soon. I'd like to make sure if we could get geographical diversity here on these things, but we will work on that. And we are continuing to reach out on the parent role. So Barbara, maybe you and I could talk about that.
do we have the FDA safety commissioner here?
We do not.
Okay.
I don't believe. So I think we're going to have to move past that on the consumer products this time and try to get them to the meeting.
Okay. So
Cliff, do you have any updates on product issues that in the absence of the FDA attending?
So the only update that I have is that we continue to work with both the Laboratories Administration and MDE in looking at the Wanabana applesauce product, and the FDA has been looking at the issues related to not just lead but also chromium, which is another toxic
It's really
metal
bad stuff. Yeah.
that has some interesting history here in Baltimore. And we are working with the Labs Administration. There's a discussion ongoing with both the Labs and the MDE about doing trace back and follow back on people who have expressed concerns about potential exposures to Wanabana product and lead levels in children. We're continuing to see a slower trickle of those come in because the product at this point is pretty much gone from most of the markets that we're familiar with. And to date, at least to date, it has not been identified in other products, either in the Wanabana series or in other applesauce prepackaged products. But it's clearly something that the FDA and a lot of states are looking at.
Okay, well, we will work to try to get further updates and get response there. And I know, but I would like to make sure, and we're going to try to get our communications team with everyone to make sure we're all doing timely communications on these matters as a collective. Can we go to the next, if you can put the agenda up, please?
So the agenda item is
If you
going
don't put it
to
up on
be
the
a-
screen, it'd be great, please.
Yep, it's just going to be a quick update. Where did I go? Hold on. Here we go. All right. Okay, so I just have a quick update to give and ask regarding commission membership. I know we already discussed it just a tad, but so Nicole, let me see if you're here. Nicole
Hart?
Yeah, she's not here. Okay. I still have not heard back from the governor's office. We keep checking with them. So she is not officially commissioner yet. And also Barbara Moore and Anna Davis. I still have not heard back from them. So Barbara, have you gotten any letter officially inviting you back to as commissioner?
I
Nothing.
haven't gotten
Okay.
anything.
I'm still checking with them. I mean, we did get like 2 or 3 a couple weeks ago, but I just haven't. So we're still waiting on 3 to get approved. So that was just a quick thing. Any other comments on commission membership, or you're okay with that, Ruth Ann?
Wendy, I'll help you
just
find
in
some. I'll help find another property owner from the post 1949. I think is the one that was open.
Yep.
I'll
I
help.
already closed it out.
I'll
And
help.
I just, yeah, that'd be great, Adam. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
And I
Okay.
just texted Secretary Edwards or sent an email to that office just to ask also. And, you know, a request if, I don't think Tyler is here, but if the Secretary's office at MDE can ask that question and make a priority of it, I think that would be important, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Cliff's hands raised, or
Yes,
was raised.
sir. Yep.
Just, Wendy, did you need to mention something about ethics filings?
Go ahead, Cliff.
I don't.
Oh, I don't want to be the police on this
No,
one,
go ahead.
but
Please.
just a reminder, all of us, or many of us, will have received emails from the State Ethics Board that was a reminder that this is the open period for ethics financial filings. And I just wanted to remind people because oftentimes the ethics board will end up chasing you.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get that email, so thank you for that information. Appreciate that.
Actually, Wendy, I'll work with you afterwards and we can send that email out to all commissioners with the link. I think would be
Okay.
very important to do. So that's super important. And thank you, Cliff, for that housekeeping item. Wendy, I think at this point we're on a meeting calendar cadence. I thought this was resolved in my head that we were going to keep the meetings as were, but if you don't think it was,
So
please re-raise it.
yeah, so the meeting calendar, let me go. Okay, so let's see, we have March coming up. Paul and I will hopefully have some information to give you guys on the annual report for the governor. Jonathan Clonderud is going to be doing hopefully a presentation, but did anybody else want to go on for March? Because that's going to be a pretty late schedule.
I'm sorry. Oh, well, you're talking about content. I think we'll have a legislative update at that point in time for certain.
Mhm.
We'll have reports back from these two work groups that we are focused on. And I think at that point in time, I'd be happy. I said I would do this when we might know more. We'll probably know a lot more about the opportunities from Maryland community organizations through the Thriving Communities. So I'll give an update on that. And we'll try to get the FDA here. Is there a request from anybody about anything that we would like to hear from otherwise?
And we have basically, other than legislation outcomes and next steps for April, there's nothing for April. So you can think about that and let me know.
Great. We'll do if nothing else, we'll do the updates of where we are in planning for the educational programs.
So we have not officially, like we did a vote on these individual times that were off. And I know, Ruthie, you keep mentioning because it's Healthy Homes Awareness Month, I think in June, you wanted to have a public meeting, but
I encourage
vote on this again, or do you want to do and take a vote on whether or not we're going to meet in June, or how do you want to work that?
Sure. Let me just propose this. I would propose that we hold a public meeting in community. We can talk about work and have a group to select where we do that. I think it's important. I'm happy to trade a meeting for that. But it is Healthy Homes Awareness Month. We should be really talking to the public directly, having the public, and if we do it in June, we have time now to build that constituency to attend. But I would like to suggest we do that. And if we need to or desire to, we could trade a November or December meeting time, potentially the November meeting time for that. So that's my suggestion. Are there any thoughts on that from anyone?
Do we have a motion? Yeah, any motion or thoughts on it?
I just want to, any feedback from people on that? Anybody in favor of that? Yeah, Paula?
I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm just wondering why you're thinking November instead of like December.
Oh, either one.
Okay.
Either one.
I mean, I would like to make a motion that we do the June meeting, but skip the December meeting.
Okay. Cliff has seconded that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
No,
Okay.
hearing no opposition, I think. Wendy, that's what we're doing.
All right. So June is going to be a public meeting. We'll have to work together, Ruthie, to make sure that, you mean
Yeah, I don't,
not here, right?
all of these are public meetings for those who
Well,
are,
yeah.
right? And,
do you mean a different location? Is that what you
yeah, I
mean by?
mean out in the public.
Okay.
That accessible meeting. We'll work about time and place that make sure that families, contractors, community organizations can attend. And we did Henderson Hopkins School in Baltimore last time. Whether we do Baltimore again, do Baltimore County, do Western Maryland, or the Eastern Shore, I think we would like input both from our guests here and from the commissioners. And I'm going to ask you to please email Wendy if you have that suggestion. But Wendy, you and I can work on a survey.
Okay.
And Chevelle, if you would please assist with that. If you can give me a thumbs up that we can get you to assist with that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Because I know good partners like Baltimore Connect would love to have something like this.
Mhm.
So let's do that. And thank you so much. Okay.
So we have Theo Williams up on deck. Theo, do you have any slides that you want to share, or do you want me to share them?
Whatever's easiest, I can share the slides or you can share
Okay.
them.
I'll stop presenting then and I'll give you control.
And
Sounds
thank you
good.
very much, Theo. And next up after Theo will be Mike McKnight.
Sure thing. All right, let me go ahead and present. Okay, so thank you all for taking the time to discuss our strategic plan. I do want to clarify that DHCD has a strategic plan writ large. It's not specific to lead. However, we do have some lead components. So this will be a fairly brief presentation. I'll go over the strategic plan in general and kind of the origin of it, and then briefly touch on the various tactics. So when the government came into office, he tasked each of the cabinet level secretaries to develop a long-term strategic plan that covers all aspects of their agency. This was billed as, I don't quite want to use the term aspirational because that implies that, we aren't going to get these tasks done. But given an unlimited budget, unlimited political will, and assuming that the governor is reelected, what do you want to accomplish with your then 8, now 7 years as a secretary? So our secretary did an extensive process of internal feedback, a lot of external feedback, met with a variety of different stakeholders representing a multitude of different viewpoints, and put together a strategic plan that has 4 key objectives and then broadband as a supplement. So those are expanding and preserving affordable housing. This is recognizing that we have a shortage of nearly 100,000 homes in the state, and the majority of that shortage are in the income bands that are the lowest income bands. So those that are extremely low income, in other words, 30% AMI is the primary shortage of housing, and then very low income, which I believe is 60% or 50%, I always get them confused, AMI. So recognizing that, we really have to ramp up our production of affordable housing is really key to solving the affordability crisis, but really has to be targeted to those portions of the income band. We can't just build more market rate housing and hope that'll trickle down. The second one is providing shelter for all. This is recognizing that we have, I believe, about 33,000 Marylanders who experience literal federal definition homelessness every year. A large portion of those are children, of course, unaccompanied youth, chronically homeless, veterans homeless. Maryland, like every state, continues to have a homelessness crisis, and we haven't achieved functional zero in any of our populations, be that veterans or chronically homeless or unaccompanied youth. So we really need to ensure that at the very least, everyone has access to shelter, with the goal of moving them into permanent housing, be that supportive housing or housing they're able to achieve on their own. The third component is to make livable places. This is kind of our community development arm of this plan. This recognizes that, a home is much more than the physical home or the physical house. It's the community in which you live. And that, we really need to invest in the people that make up that community, while also investing in, the built and physical infrastructure of that community, be that parks, community centers, of course, all the ancillary healthcare facilities, food, grocery stores, and everything else. The fourth component and the last of the main plan are righting the wrongs of the past. This is a focus on the fact that, since the beginning of the country, we've had a racist set of policies, and particularly in the early 20th century, starting with Euclidean zoning and kind of the origin of zoning, through into urban renewal, highway construction, FHA loans, redlining. Everything was designed with a racist bent in mind. And so we need to correct that, 100 multi-century past by proactively investing in those disinvested communities. And this, is both a community development component, but also, really focusing on how do we move minority households into home ownership. Home ownership is the best way to build wealth, not just in terms of equity in the home, but there's been numerous studies that have showed homeowners just have better, greater equity as opposed to renters, excluding the equity that they have in their home. And then the final kind of, I don't want to call it ancillary, but it was developed through a separate process, is expanding broadband. We still have areas of the state, I think it's about 30,000, please don't quote me on that, 30,000 homes that do not have access to broadband. And then we have a larger portion of individuals that have access to broadband that's below 100 megabytes download speed, 25 megabytes upload speed, which are known as underserved households. That was not incorporated into the Secretary's main plan because there's a separate federal broadband equity access and development and deployment plan that's part of NTIA, which I don't know what that stands for. And that, is a $350 million plan or 273. I always get that and power confused. Hundreds of millions of dollars devoted to ensuring that everyone in the state has at least access to broadband, if not the appropriate speeds. LED is a component of this plan. The plan across these 4 objectives, it consists of 56 strategies and 229 tactics. It is very ambitious, potentially one of the most expansive and ambitious plans among the secretaries. We've broken out each of these tactics to a different division and different component of the department. They will be tasked over the course of the next, hopefully 7 years, to actually executing on these tactics. And of course, with support from the administration. We also recognize that a lot of these tactics, as we'll be going into for the lead tactics, involve a lot more than just DHCD, involve partners both across government and out of government. And we really want to be relying on those partners to execute these. So there are 3 tactics that focus on lead remediation activities. These have been framed within righting the wrongs of the past, recognizing that a disproportionate portion of our population lives in non-lead safe homes, more or less lead-free homes, and that a disproportionate number of those homes are in Baltimore City, and that this really is part of righting historical injustices rather. And more than just the mere fact of de-leading homes. And this falls under a broader strategy of securing healthy homes for children in disinvested neighborhoods. So I don't happen to remember the other tactics offhand, but I believe they have to deal with asthma and some other components of how the built environment can lead to negative health outcomes. So without further ado, we have 3 tactics. The first is to expand the Healthy Homes for Healthy Kids program. That is something we want to do. However, we recognize that we aren't necessarily in the driver's seat on this. As I stated earlier, these are goals that we want to achieve, over the next 7 years. But we can't make Medicaid do something that is outside of our purview, and we'll be relying heavily on MDA to execute on this. We also have a goal of creating a Maryland lead safe housing fund. We are generally general fund funded primarily. And of course, that with any general fund appropriation, we're at the mercy of the generosity of the Maryland General Assembly. So if we can create some type of dedicated funding that doesn't just rely on state funding, we also want to bring in our private sector partners, both in terms of philanthropy and our healthcare partners, recognizing that, as with everything in healthcare, the goal is preventative medicine. And the goal is to ensure that we don't have repeated hospitalizations. That's the entire concept behind Healthy Homes for Healthy Kids, recognizing that Maryland has already established that. But we do hope that, we can convince some healthcare partners to this end. And then, really kind of narrowing in on healthcare, we do want to, try to ensure, the state has a broader goal of ensuring that people can live near where they work. And part of living near where you work is to have safe housing. So there's the affordability component in terms of being able to purchase the home, which we do through our various down payment assistance and mortgage offerings. But also, the physical and built environment must support being able to live near where you work. recognizing that employers do have a role in doing that, and employers have a incentive to ensuring that their employees can live near where they live. And then again, with the aforementioned goal of having preventative healthcare, we would hope that Maryland hospitals are willing to contribute to that goal. Recognizing that there are many asterisks with these goals, this is, what the Secretary has outlined as his key objectives as it relates to de-leading Maryland. And I did have another component that I've forgotten at the moment. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Unfortunately, I may have to get back to you on some of those answers, but nevertheless, I'm happy to take them.
Theo, let me, if I can start on that.
Absolutely.
Sure. And let's go to the last one first, right? Just up the road in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, the LGH hospital put in $50 million to de-lead housing in their community. It's going to result in over 2,800 to 3,200 homes being fully de-leaded.
Wow.
The hospital systems in Maryland have long had the opportunity and proposals in front of them to do this. I think having the governor, having the Secretary of Housing weigh in on this importance, right? So just to help you with that last one, we will happily talk to you, as would LGH Health, which is part of the University of Pennsylvania health system, talk to you about the significance and how they went about doing that, right? They're putting in $5 million a year over 10 years, and then HUD has brought in an additional $12 million to support that. So they have $62 million at play. They're about to align that with their whole house program in Pennsylvania. So that means they're adding in weatherization, et cetera. Baltimore's kids really deserve that, right? We have requests out to at least one of the major hospitals around this, and we think it makes sense to do this. It's not Mount Washington, but who already does so much around this, but there's so much on primary prevention we can do. So I'm so glad to see this. Also, you should note that the Cleveland Clinic in the city of Cleveland put in $52 million to de-lead housing in their city. So this is a very tangible thing to be done, right? They did that straight up. They didn't do it over a 10-year period. I think but we can get the details of how they did that. And we credit Marcia Fudge for having met with us on the LGH investment, literally flying to Cleveland, meeting with the Cleveland Clinic and prompting them to do this. I think we could do a convening of hospitals and philanthropy around this issue. On the Lead Safe Housing Fund, the city of Cleveland has one. The city of Milwaukee is working on one. The state of Michigan has $100 million being considered by its state legislature. And there are other funds around the country. So I know that our team and our staff who have worked on these things stand ready to help Maryland think about this. We have been pressing, I've met with the chiefs of staff, pressing to have a philanthropic roundtable around climate, health, and housing. And I think there would be a lot of appetite for this. And I think what Mike's going to talk about next is there's going to be a lot of disturbance coming out of all of the climate investments, right? That we have to be ready. We couldn't be more thrilled to see certainly the first one as well, expanding that CHIP and Medicaid investment and how we do that. I think it's one of the best and most flexible ways, if we do it right, to do this work, and allows us to work in areas of the state where there are not other resources. The last piece of this that I don't see, and maybe you had it earlier, is to really work to get the state in a successful position for the HUD lead hazard control funds. We want to offer again to help with that for sure, and to support that. What I'd love to do is have sort of work with the department, the commission, the department, I know our organization and others, to actually have, here's the tactics. Now, what are we going to do to advance this? We want to support you in this work. So I know I want to just say thank you. Are there others, Wendy, who have hands up to ask or say anything here with Theo?
Yeah, there's no hands up and nothing in the comments.
Okay, well, I'm really glad this is the most concrete I have seen out of a housing department in a very, very long time on lead, and really great commendation to you, to Jack, to Jake Day, for listening to the transition team as well on this, and to the leadership of Governor Moore on wanting to address this issue. So thank you.
And thank you for your comments. That are very useful.
All righty. Michael McKnight, are you on?
Yes, thanks, Ruth Ann. And
Welcome to the Lead Commission, Mike. You're going back. We're taking your Throwback Thursday here for you.
yes, and
Okay.
echo your comments around DHCD. That was great presentation, exciting developments. I was going to inform the commission around some of the
Can you
investments.
introduce yourself and
Oh, yeah,
then do
sorry.
that? Thank you.
Yeah, Mike McKnight. I'm the Senior Vice President of National Programs with Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. Been with the organization for about 14 years. Work on policy, health policy. That's why I definitely perked up at some of the issues around, incorporating the lead investments and things like that. And then, also kind of focus on federal policy and federal investments. And so I was going to talk about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is a significant investment in sort of climate resilience around the country, and kind of the opportunities that it may present in terms of lead hazard control, and then also some challenges, and just want to inform the commission about some of these things. So there's 3 programs under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and I'll kind of talk about all 3 of them. The total Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is $27 billion. The first program that I'll talk about is the Solar for All program, which nationally is $7 billion. Maryland has put in for $100 million under their proposal that went in October. They should be hearing about this in about 2 months, about whether or not they get awarded. And Maryland has requested the $100 million to do solar and then kind of related improvements that would be necessary to enable solar. So addressing other deficiencies in housing, which could be lead, could be, roof replacement, those kind of issues. But the plan that Maryland proposed is to do 3,700 single family home retrofits that includes solar, and then around 5,000 multifamily units. They estimate around 60 multifamily units that would 50 multifamily properties that would be around those 5,000 housing units to do those repairs. It's a 5-year plan so it would start essentially later on this fall, and then run for 5 years. The bulk of the housing retrofit work would be in like year 2 and year 3. So essentially around the late 2026 and then 2027, do they expect the bulk of those investments to occur. Then jumping to the 2 other programs. So there's a $14 billion National Clean Investment Fund, where there's going to be 2 to 3 awardees. And the awardees of this National Clean Investment Fund include basically green banks around the country. And there's only going to be 2 to 3 awardees for this $14 billion. The Montgomery County Green Bank is part of one of the applicants, the Coalition for Green Capital, that's requested $10 billion. And so the idea under that National Clean Investment Fund is that they will have these big national, groups, and then they will funnel that money down to eligible projects, and they got 3 categories of projects, and one of those 3 categories is net zero buildings. And in the EPA, when they launched the NOFO, they talk about that includes single family, includes multifamily, and they did put in language around sort of holistic housing investments and things like that. So once these awards go out to these big national coalition groups, then they'll be looking for the green banks and the equivalent of green banks in states to identify investments that can be made, in that building retrofit space. And so for these programs, we don't know how much ultimately Maryland will receive in terms of these investments, but have heard from Governor Moore's administration that they want to capitalize on this historic investment. And then the third program is called the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, and that is made up of $6 billion, and there's going to be 5 to 7 awardees, and this money is targeted for essentially local financial institutions, local lenders, and networks of local lenders, community development financial institutions. And so there's several sort of aggregated groups that are going after this money, and then their job is to essentially funnel this money down to those local community development financiers and to sort of develop projects. They say it's going to be about $10 million of investment per project. So you could end up, for example, maybe Baltimore City might have, 10 local lenders that identify building projects that they want to kind of invest in. Each of those 10 local lenders could receive $10 million from this aggregation and utilize that to do, energy efficiency retrofits, including sort of the enabling upgrades and addressing other housing deficiencies. So, with the level of potential investment, I think this is an opportunity to kind of think about incorporating and partnering sort of the lead hazard control remediation along with the energy upgrades. There also could be some challenges, and one thing is just that, there's going to be lots of retrofit activity, demolition activity that takes place, and so there could be risks of exposure to lead dust by all the workers that are doing this retrofits, the surrounding community. So that's something that a challenge that the commission may want to think about. The other challenge is around whether or not the energy retrofits may drive contractors to that work and potentially take away sort of the contractor capacity to do the lead work. We've seen in various jurisdictions around the country, sometimes, this challenge, this limitation of contractors. And so under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, if you've got $100 million for the solar and you've got whatever amount of money that Maryland's able to capture from sort of the other big, investments, you could have significant housing work and energy retrofit work going on there, and having that contractor pool essentially be driven towards that work, and might end up slowing down some of the core lead hazard control work. So those are kind of the big key pieces that we wanted to share with the commission.
And I think just the point, Mike, that there could be a lot of disturbance of lead-based paint here in this, right? And we have to be mindful. Does anybody have any questions or found this helpful to know, just to know what's coming? All right. Well, I appreciate that you doing that. I know that we're also working on, as you may have mentioned, tools to try to make sure that we can lessen the lending impacts for low-income communities, improve the opportunities for both property owners, homeowners, as we do this. And we want to make sure that we're doing this that supports Theo's work on whole house. So we look forward to seeing how this follows out. And we also want to say what a great job MDE is doing across the board on their climate plan, their support for this. The one thing I want to remind the commission too is that we're going to be working on an EPA community change grant that'll include communities, state agencies, city agencies, and region. It will focus on a whole house approach and will help us to address this issue of lead. And Theo, I will remind you as we work on this, that could bring $20 million to this effort as we think about that plan that you put up. So we'll include you in the work group on that as we advance this.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Good to see you here. And Wendy, I think we're down to updates now. Is that right?
Legislation, any,
Yep.
I don't know if you guys met at all, the subcommittee that was pulled together, but do you guys have any?
We did not, but Wes has an update, and I'm sure Adam and maybe Anna may have things to add. I don't know if Anna's with us today, actually. But Wes, if you want to give a very quick update. I know there was a bill hearing yesterday on fees for MDE. Paula, I don't know if anybody from MDE wants to comment on that, and then we can go from there.
Tyler had told me that the fee, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, was favorable. I think there were a few suggestions that I think we're working on. And then there was another bill as well, Wendy,
Is it the RFP funding?
yes, that was the one I was just talking about. So that was the update that Tyler gave us.
What was the other bill?
I think that was it.
The fee, there was the fee bill.
The one I just mentioned is the same one, Wendy, the RFP, the RFP.
Funding bill. The hearing was yesterday, Paula, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it went well.
Wes, do you have both of those bills?
Sure. That bill is House Bill 245. That bill would essentially double the fees for registration from $30 to $60 every 2 years. It will actually go from $30 to $120, but it's over 2 years. So the increase on an annualized basis will essentially be $60 a year, but it will increase the fees per unit to $120, but make it due every 2 years versus every year. So that's the proposal. There's not.
Can I pause there? Adam, I don't know. There was some opposition from property owners. Do you want to talk about that?
Adam texted or put something in the chat at 10:33. His apologies, but he has to run, so he's no longer on.
Okay, I think there was some opposition, and I know that Delegate Boyce was very supportive of this in the committee, is what I understand. So it's now going to move from there. Was there a second bill?
It was not a cross-file Senate bill for that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Wes?
Sure. The House Bill 97 is the baby food toxic testing and labeling. So that's House Bill 97 being heard on February 7th. It would require that all baby foods be tested by the manufacturer monthly, as well as increasing packaging and labeling. So that's scheduled for February 7th. There are two bills.
And Dr. Mitchell, do you know if DHMH is looking at this bill? Or MDH, apologies.
The Department of Health looks at all bills that are potentially food related and toxics related as they pertain to regulated foods in commerce. Okay. That is my thoughtfully non-committal, but yes, we are looking at the bill.
Yeah. When I'm hearing monthly testing, I think that's going to be a high hurdle operationally if it's testing products monthly, but I don't know what we'll have to look and see what. Wes, can you illuminate that a little bit more? Of what
sure, it includes lead, cadmium, arsenic, a couple other heavy metals.
Mercury.
Essentially, at least monthly mandated to manufacturers. I think getting to the applesauce issue of things not being tested regularly. So We can do a crosswalk with what the FDA currently requires, and we could report back to the commission.
That'd be
Yes,
good. Yeah.
I will add that sorry, Madam Chair, go ahead, finish your thought. It's complicated because, as you all know, there is a national framework for testing, labeling, etc. And I will also say that California actually has a law that just went into effect that is essentially, I believe, very similar to this draft legislation. So that's just for people's awareness.
Okay. Okay, Wes, can you go over House Bill 241, the Housing Community Development Just Communities designation, please?
Right, that's House Bill 241, and also there's a Senate cross-file bill that would prioritize state funding, in particular DHCD funding at the state level, to what are called just communities, typically overburdened, underserved communities as designated by the governor and by DHCD. And it would prioritize existing state funding, doesn't create new funding going to those areas. So I don't know if Theo, if you have any comment as well on that.
Yeah, sure. This is a departmental bill that we're putting forward. It's similar to the Sustainable Communities designation. However, this is in the vein of the Secretary's righting the wrongs of the past. It looks at areas that have been experiencing some type of historical wrong, but not just the impact of those historically, but how they're impacting things currently. So that could be being in proximity to a Superfund site, an area with a high rate of incarceration or other negative health outcomes. The intent of coupling those two together is, areas such as Canton and Federal Hill in Baltimore were red line communities. However, they're currently not in need of new investment. So we want to ensure that, those areas that have been negatively impacted and continue to be negatively impacted are receiving an adequate share of state funding. I would also add that, although this is a DHC departmental bill, we did write it in such a way to give the governor the authority to have this apply to any program across state government, not just DHCD programs. Of course, it's up to the governor as to whether or not he elects to utilize our maps for other programs.
Got it. And does this align, is it thoughtfully aligned to the Justice 40 and the EPA Environmental Justice Tracker? Do you know?
I believe that is one of the components, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But I can double check on that.
Well, that'll be really important, but I think there are communities that don't need the funding, but I will remind folks that even what's now called Harbor Point, the fancy part of Harbor East, is built on the second largest chromium-6 site in the nation. So think Aaron Brockovich, right? And it's sealed and always at risk, right? And Canton itself is built on a lot of diesel fuel below the surface. So we have environmental issues throughout, but certainly much, much more need in many other communities that have been completely neglected there. So kudos on that. And then Wes, you have the Maryland Capital Loan Act. Is that crossing lead?
Right, that's House Bill 351 and Senate Bill 361. That sets the special loan programs at $4 million. So Theo, just for the commission, is that increasing? What's the significance of that in terms of the lead program, which is within special loans?
Sorry, was that a question to me?
Yeah, but just in terms of that.
Is this an increase in dollars for special loans that touch lead in the Maryland Capital
I
Loan?
am actually not familiar with this bill. What was the number again? My apologies for not being
Sure.
351.
Yep. And Senate Bill 361, they're cross-filed.
Oh, this is the Capital Bond Act, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, yes, any increase in special funds would, special loans program would increase the lead loan as well, but I'd have to check that with you on a breakdown. I'll get that to you.
If you could just report back by email to Wendy, we can share that
Yep.
with the commission.
Sure.
I think the rest of these that we have on here, Wes, are not lead related. So any questions about legislative process? And Wendy will just ask that we keep an eye on these and share when the hearings are. Yes, Theo.
I just wanted to also note that one of the governor's bills is the Tenants' Rights Act.
Yes.
Which is SB 481, HB 693. And that does include in there a provision that limits security deposits to 1 month's rent. I know that came up on the last commission meeting, and I mentioned that we were going to have some legislation around that. So that would eliminate first month's, last month's rent practice, and instead require only 1 month's rent.
Well, I think this is extremely important, and given the conversation about application fees, I'd like to ask that committee, Barbara et al. And Theo, to look at how this plays to help to remove those barriers for tenants. But really think that's important. Okay, thank you, Wes. Wendy, who's up next?
So we have our hot topics and current events. Let me go ahead.
Well, let me go back.
Okay.
One thing. I think my suggestion is we don't quite know enough as a commission about these bills yet, but at the next meeting, if they are still viable and moving forward, we're going to get enough information out to the commission and its legislative committee to see if we want to weigh in on any hearings or support for them, unless anybody feels that they would like to see the commission support the limits on rent, the baby food toxic metals, or the just communities, or the environmental fees for MDE. I actually would like to have the commission consider writing a letter of support to both the House and the Senate supporting the Maryland Department of the Environment's fee increase bill, and wanted to open that up for discussion, if any.
I would like to just note that fees have not been increased on registration since 2012. I just wanted to, so that's been 11 years. And I just wanted to, if there's any opposition, I just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah. So anybody willing to support a motion that the commission send a letter of support here? And I know some of the agencies may have to take a pass on that, but Paul or Susan, any motion maybe from anyone? Do we lose enough people we don't have it?
I have a motion that we submit a letter of support. Unfortunately, I don't have time to write a letter of support.
Yeah, well, we can send it to the committee. So I will second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Great, got a bunch of people in favor. Anyone who needs to be, for the record, abstaining from this, please make yourself known.
Cliff Mitchell abstains. Paul Montgomery abstains.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I'll abstain as well.
Okay.
Who was that? Theo?
Theo,
Okay.
is that the standard of the department, that the departments abstain from this?
You don't always have to, but I think people make that decision.
Sure. Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of our legislative officer, so yeah, we'll abstain.
Great. Okay. I do think otherwise it we carried by the non-state government officials here. Without objection, I will write a letter and we will send to the committee to support this.
Ruth Ann, can I get a copy of that letter?
Yeah, of course, it'll come through, be vetted by MDE appropriately. Okay. And for the record, GHHI testified in favor of this bill yesterday. So separately, we'll let you know that. And Beth Bingham represented GHHI and testified yesterday in favor. Okay. Any questions otherwise?
Cliff Mitchell has his hand up.
Yes, sir.
Not a question, Ruth Ann, but I have an update and an acknowledgement at some point.
Okay. I think we are through current legislative. We'll know more about this unless the only other one that I would propose to the commission that I think is pretty straightforward. is supporting House Bill 241, Housing and Community Development Just Community Designation, aligns deeply with the work that we have here. If anybody, yes, Theo?
I wanted to note that the House hearing was on Tuesday and the Senate hearings today. So I appreciate your support, but the hearings
Yeah.
are still fast.
Yep. But putting a letter in before the vote is always an important
Oh,
thing.
yeah, just a general. Yeah, okay. I thought you were saying specifically to the hearing. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Barbara, you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we write a letter of support.
Anybody to second that motion?
I second.
All righty, thank you very much. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will take the same abstentions as needed. And unless Theo, Paula, or Cliff want to reverse on that, and we will send a letter in support of this. We'll try to get both of these letters out today to the chairs of the commission, but they will, Wendy will come through so Tyler can see what we are doing. Okay. All righty. Now, Dr. Mitchell, you had something you wanted to say.
I did. Can you hear me? Because as usual, being in a state office itself, I have poor internet connection.
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay, fine. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Washington County Health Department, the Frederick County Health Department, GHHI, MDE, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and the staffs at Medicaid and in my own bureau. And I want to just give you a little bit of history because I think it illustrates some of the challenges that Barbara Moore was talking about, and I would include Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital in this discussion as well. This was an incredibly complicated case that involved numerous agencies collaborating together to help a family. I'm not going to give any more details about the location, but obviously you can tell from the counties involved. But I think it illustrates some of the challenges that are represented when we talk about owner-occupied homes. And without revealing any of the individual details, I will just say that this involved both the Medicaid programs for housing for lead abatement at DHCD, and it also involved funding that we received, the Department of Health received from the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials for case management. And it represented also a collaboration between two health departments in order to help this family. And GHHI, I just want to publicly acknowledge to the commission, GHHI staff also spent time helping this family to move in. So if you look at the person hours and the funds that were expended and the resources that were utilized, it represents, I think, some notion of, for these complicated cases, how extraordinarily expensive and resource intensive it is to assist the family and how much coordination it requires. And the reason I mention that is because as we move collectively to trying to address some of these more complicated cases, it is not going to be an easy proposition in all cases to do that. And I think it demonstrates both the commitment of the state to work on these, but also the necessity of multi-agency collaboration and thinking seriously about how it is that we identify and manage these cases moving forward, particularly at a time when resources may be stretched as we move forward. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the agencies involved and just to give a lot of credit, because I think many of the local health departments do this work without any funding whatsoever. We were able, in this case, to fund them. But I think it does represent a real challenge for them, and they did really heroic work. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Fantastic, and thank you. And I know
Thank
that it takes a village, right? And we appreciate the kindness of the remarks and just the amazing work. And doesn't happen without MDH quarterbacking that, I will say for certain. Got to move this stuff on prevention for sure. All right, let's go through our speed dating here. MDE, anything to report?
Nothing at this time. I don't think Fred is on the call as well. He's traveling, so.
Fred is going to be at the thing that I'm at tomorrow in Rhode Island.
You're right, exactly.
And there is a request to know the status of the RFP and the legislative funds that were the last legislature, because the legislature is now going back through administrative review for budgets, and that's an unspent $500,000 that was sent to the department. So it'd be great if the department could update the commission on what they intend to do with that moving forward. MDH.
I already mentioned the work that we've been doing with not just the this case, but a number of other very complicated cases. Again, thanks to Barbara Moore and the Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, as well as others on this call, for all of that work. I will say MDE has been rolling out its Healthy Homes and Lead Poisoning Surveillance System, the successor to Stellar, the Childhood Lead Registry. And we are working with MDE and local health departments to think about how we effectively roll that out to the local health departments and utilize it for effective case management in conjunction with, or maybe as a successor to, and we don't know the answer to this yet, the REDCap system that we developed that is utilized by the 11 jurisdictions that are in our home visiting program. So we're trying to coordinate very closely with Fred, Shanika Frazier, Rena Boss Victoria, and Shamola Dai in all of that work. And that's pretty much what we've been working on.
Great. Thank you very much. Great work. Paul?
No, nothing new from IMD-AAP.
Okay, thank you for all that you were sharing with us earlier this month. Mangela?
Nothing to report, ma'am.
Okay, great. Good to see you. Benita?
Nothing to report, thank you.
All righty. Theo, I think you've done about all you can do, but is there anything else?
No other updates.
Okay, great. All right, Catherine is on, I believe. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. You're doing such a great job. And you and Julie, if you can give us an update from the city. And we don't have Catherine or Julie.
I was just going to say, I don't have any updates from my end. Yep.
Okay, you're getting settled and moving things
Yes.
forward. Good.
Yes.
Okay. And Chevelle, do you have anything left on GHHI? I've already talked about, we're going to be doing the EPA application. We'll give an update on thriving communities at the next meeting. But anything you want to report from an outreach side?
We're also gearing up for our outreach at the Head Starts. So we got 2 more Head Starts that are more than willing to have us come out and do, I call them Healthy Homes Hugs. So we're going to be at the YMCA, the Y of Central Maryland Head Starts in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, starting this month, February and March, and also sites we have scheduled for Catholic Charity as well in Baltimore City, where we're going to be setting up, doing presentations for the parents. The Y of Central Maryland Head Starts have monthly parent meetings that they would like us to come out and do presentations on lead poisoning prevention, as well as other Green and Healthy Homes Initiative programs and services that their parents may qualify for.
So, and I will just encourage people, if you've got families, please refer them to us, to Chevelle, to info@ghhi.org, to any of us. We have a lot of good funding to create lead safe, asthma reduced, injury safe, and very energy efficient housing for families. And we're doing a whole house approach in Baltimore, modeling after the tenor set by DHCD and their approach on whole house. It is all grants, and we really encourage applications to us or to our partners at the city of Baltimore, and our funding through MEA and others also reaches into Baltimore County. I see that Catherine is back, and I wanted to give her an opportunity if she had anything to add for Baltimore City. Thank you, Catherine.
Hi, Ruth Ann. I'm sorry. I had to step out for a phone call.
No, that happens. We know.
I don't have any immediate updates, but we do have our 2 grants still going. Our older grant is ending in March. So we are expecting to do a whole lot of unit production to end off the quarter. So yeah, that's where we are right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. The last thing I will say here is GHHI is going to be in the workforce marketplace, posting some pretty significant jobs as we expand some of our work for thriving communities, including a project director for the $50 million grant fund. We have position openings in policy. We are going to be looking to expand openings around our intake and community engagement to support all the good folks here. So please check our jobs board if you have good referrals. We want to help get this job done with you. Anybody else from the public? Hearing none, I think we are.
Just as a reminder for next month, if everybody can be prepared. Jonathan's not on, but I'll make sure he's aware. And just more legislation updates on what's going on, our 2 work group updates. And Ruth Ann, I missed the title on that one update you wanted to give.
Thriving communities.
Okay.
But I also want to make sure, Wendy, that everybody got a copy of the 21 report that Tyler released. But we are awaiting the 22, so it'd be great if MDE could come hopefully next month with the FY22 report, and if not, an update on where that stands, because we're going to need the 23 report soon, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you all. Go back, have a great day, and thank you for agreeing to a public meeting and for the really important work that our subcommittees will do in the intervening month. Barbara, yes, go ahead, please.
I was just wondering, Madam Chair, if the key players are still involved for my case after everyone else goes off.
Yes.
Could we just stay on for a couple minutes, and if I can get a help update?
Yes, we'll do that, and we'll ask everybody else to leave who's not involved in that. Susan, you have a comment?
Yeah, Ruth Ann, you had asked me just to kind of head up something for the RRP for the, can you give me a little bit more direction, whether it be now or later, as to what it is you generally want me to do in terms of contacting or, scheduling or kind of coming up with the meat of
Yeah, so Wendy and I will talk, and then we'll talk about how we can schedule that best, whether it's through her or directly through you, or if Kennedy here can help.
That's great. That's all I wanted to make sure I didn't leave the ball in the report. Thank you.
The only thing I would ask, please, is as the meeting ends, that we stop the recording. Okay. Yes. And then for the folks, Barbara, that you wanted to stay, do you know who they are? So the public portion of this meeting has ended, and we appreciate everyone.